Welcome to the Invite Health podcast, where our degreed healthcare professionals are excited to offer you the most important health and wellness information you need to make informed choices about your health. You can learn more about the products discussed in each of these episodes and all that Invite Health has to offer at www.invitehealth.com/podcast. First-time customers can use promo code podcast at checkout for an additional 15% off your first purchase. Let's get started.
Welcome part 2 to my podcast episode, Take These Nutrients for Your Memory, or it could be Take These Supplements for Your Memory, same thing. I discussed in pretty good detail research on vitamin B6, vitamin B12, and folate for retaining your memory in part 1 of the episode, and I also did some discussion of vitamin D. Now I'd like to complete this conversation. There's many different aspects of health that can affect your memory as you age, and that can literally increase the risk of dementia if you don't handle it well. So welcome to part 2 of my podcast. My name is Jerry Hickey. I'm a nutritional pharmacist. I'm the senior scientific officer over here at Invite. You can find all of our episodes, our podcast episodes, for free wherever you listen to podcasts, or just go to our homepage, invitehealth.com/podcast. You can also find Invite on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Invite Health. All of the information on today's podcast episode will be listed in the description. So I mentioned briefly some research on vitamin D in part 1 of this episode, in part 1 of this podcast. But there's a lot of evidence for vitamin D and brain health. And there's a lot of evidence for vitamin B12 and vitamin B6 and folate and brain health. We're going to go a couple of steps beyond that now, but there's also new research on vitamin D and your risk of dementia. It's from the U.S. National Alzheimer's Coordinating Center. And the research was reviewed by the University of Calgary Hotchkiss Brain Health Institute and the University of Exeter, which would be in England. It's in the recent issue of the Journal of Alzheimer's, of the Alzheimer's Association, Diagnosis, Disease, and Monitoring. So that's hefty. That's not the kind of thing you want to read and give you bad dreams, but when you're doing this kind of podcast, you want to read these journals. But they looked at research including 12,400 participants. They followed them for 10 years. And they found that vitamin D helps keep you dementia-free. I mean, there was a strong association there. Vitamin D reduced the risk of developing dementia by 40%. So I thought I'd just add that because that's more new research that came out. There's so much research on B12, folate, and B6 and memory. So now let's look at things that protect the brain and things that can damage the brain. A very poor diet is very bad for the brain on many levels. It allows the brain to become inflamed because it's not supporting the supply of healthy antioxidants for the brain. And it's not nourishing the bacteria that live in your intestines. The bacteria in your intestines don't get into your brain, but they create things out of good, wholesome foods that are good for the brain. So when you eat a bad diet, like, diet colas, apple turnovers, French fries, fried foods, when you eat a diet that's mostly that kind of food, bad for the brain. Or if it's over-processed food, it's just lacking nutrition. Over-processed foods are a lot of those dehydrated foods that you add water to, or a lot of those pre-made foods that you get in the supermarket. You're much better off with fresh foods. So what foods are good for the brain? Well, you can look at the MIND diet. The MIND diet was done by the Rusk Institute over in Chicago. And they have pretty good evidence that it really helps slow down aging of the brain and is very protective for the brain. So look up the MIND diet. It doesn't tell you exactly how to eat. It tells you what foods to include in your food. So, and the thousands of studies I've read about foods in the brain, green leafy vegetables very important for the brain. There's so many things in green leafy vegetables: glutathione precursors, a little bit of calcium, the mineral magnesium, lutein, zeaxanthin, those are carotenoid pigments that are good for the eyes and brain. Folate. There's so many different things in green leafy vegetables that are great for the brain, and things, including some very esoteric things like glucuronic acid, indole carbanols, sulforaphane, and other isothiocyanates. So green leafy vegetables and the cabbage family would have all those things. But you also spinach and lettuce, they're good for the brain. Spinach and lettuce are good for the brain. Green tea is good for the brain. Lots of data on that. Mushrooms. Mushrooms are great for the brain. Blueberries. Berries in general are great for the brain, especially blueberries. Now, another thing is controlling your blood pressure and controlling your blood sugar. So if you have diabetes or hypertension, which means high blood pressure, take care of it. It's very important to get it back under control. Sleep. Sleep is a cycle, and it's a couple of hours, the cycle, and you go in and out of REM sleep and deep sleep, which is very important, these stages of sleep. First of all, you take everything you've learned and you kind of coordinate that and start to secure it in better locations. In the daytime, when you learn something new, like if you learn something new from me today on this episode, you store it in a temporary holding site called the hippocampus, which is, first of all, it could get filled up, and second of all, it's a little bit vulnerable to damage, losing the memories. So at night, you move these memories to other areas that are long-term memory storage sites. And when you wake up in the morning, so you're truly learning at night. You've heard the information now, but you're storing it properly tonight when you go to sleep, when you go into deep stages of sleep, which is called delta wave sleep or non-REM sleep, non-rapid eye movement sleep stages. And it's important in the morning to give your brain a little time to download this information. So when you wake up in the morning, don't grab your phone and start using your thumbs and looking at all these different things. Let the brain kind of wake up and store all this data and, download the data so you truly know it. So that's one thing. Sleep is really important. But while you're sleeping, not only are you storing memories properly, you're repairing the brain. You're actually creating cognitive reserve. You're creating new neuron memory thinking cells. You're releasing growth factors like brain-derived neurotrophic factor and nerve growth factor they take stromal stem cells, progenitor cells, and convert them into memory cells. And you could do hundreds of those every night. So you want to get your sleep, because you go in and out of deep sleep. So you want to get 7 to 8 hours. You could get by with 6. Some people 6 is fine. 6 is fine for me. But other people need 7 to 8 hours. But not only do you repair your brain at night to create these new memory cells, and not only do you store the memories properly that you learned the day before, but you also detoxify the brain at night. You have this system called the glymphatic system that breaks down plaques and toxins in the brain and removes them at night while you're sleeping. In the daytime, you can help that out by raising your legs. Like if you're sitting down, raise your legs. That helps with glymphatic cleansing of the brain a little bit, but it really takes place largely at night when you're sleeping. Exercise. Good quality exercise, a half an hour to an hour every day. It could be a walk. I mean, I walk every day many times, but I also go to the gym, I kayak, I do all these things. Be social. Lonely people and people who are not communicating with other people, it's a problem. It's a problem for your brain. Challenge your brain. I mean, I'm always reading tough studies, and I'm always learning. I'm always watching documentaries, etc. I'm always reading tough books. I mean, challenge your brain. Now, also, really kind of don't overdo the alcohol. A glass of beer once in a while or a glass of red wine once in a while is fine, but you don't want to overdo the alcohol. It's not good for your brain. Hearing loss. Hearing loss, studies are connecting it with dementia. Part of it might be that you're not as social. You're kind of socially cut off if you can't hear, but it seems to be something else too. It seems that you're taking parts of your brain that should be devoted to other things, and you're devoting it to trying to listen and hear and decipher what people are saying. So if you really have hearing loss, it's very important to get a good quality hearing aid. It's very important to get a good quality hearing aid. I would actually visit an audiologist. I know you could go online today on your computer, etc., and order hearing aids. You really should work with an audiologist. Now, there are supplements that have been shown to be helpful for the brain. Vitamin D, we went over that in the 2 parts of this podcast episode. Coenzyme Q10, which is important for metabolism in the brain. Vitamin B6, vitamin B12, folate, but also vitamin B2, which is riboflavin, and vitamin B3, which could be niacin or niacinamide. For many reasons, they're important for the brain. Vitamin B1 is important for the brain because it works in a system called the transketolase system that helps control metabolism in the brain and the use of sugar for the brain. The major source of energy for the brain is not fat, it's not protein, it's sugar. So you need B1 to use that sugar properly. Calcium and magnesium protect the brain. Krill oil. There's many studies showing that krill oil is very good for the brain. Krill oil has a whole bunch of things in it that help you create plasmalogens. So that's a mouthful, plasmalogens. They're made out of phosphatides, they're made out of serine, they're made out of fish oils, they're made out of choline. All these things are in krill. And see, antioxidant levels really decline in the brain in your 50s and 60s. And this allows free radicals that are generated through the use of oxygen and sugar, combining oxygen and sugar in the brain for energy. That's the gasoline and the oxygen for the brain, right? Just like a car engine. An old-fashioned car engine uses oxygen and gasoline. You're using oxygen and sugar in the brain for energy. And these create free radicals, and you need the antioxidants to stuff out the free radicals. Otherwise, the free radicals kill brain cells, damage blood cells, muck everything up, and inflame the brain. Plasmalogens are an alternative source of protection for your brain cells. It's kind of like the Secret Service. It's kind of like a bulletproof vest for your brain cells. So krill oil, one of the things it does in your brain, it helps you create plasmalogens. It also gives you fish oils. Your brain cells are made out of things like fish oils. And it also allows you to create acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is an important neurotransmitter in the brain that helps you solve things, that helps you learn, that helps you remember, and helps heal the brain at night when you're sleeping, by the way. So krill oil has 3 really good effects in the brain. It gives you fish oils, it helps you create acetylcholine, and it gives you plasmalogens. Lutein, zeaxanthin, and mesozeaxanthin are pigments in green leafy vegetables and corn, and to a degree in pistachio nuts. And these are great for your vision, and they're great for your memory. You need them. Vitamin C and vitamin E help protect your brain. So I'm just giving you a loose synopsis of nutrients that are good for your brain. Vitamin C could be synthetic. It's kind of like this crystalline structure that's the same as natural vitamin C. You don't have to pay a fortune for natural vitamin C. Save your money. Spend it on natural vitamin E, because the natural vitamin E is a completely different structure from the synthetic vitamin E, and it works much better to protect your brain. Now, I'm going to tell you some bonus supplements. Probiotics. A good mixture of probiotics. First of all, probiotics help control your appetite. When you eat foods, the probiotics help you create pyruvic acid in the upper intestine. When the brain sees there's enough pyruvic acid, it shuts down your appetite. You're not hungry, you're not overeating, you're not picking, you're not eating in between meals, because the brain says, oh, you ate enough calories. The pyruvate, because you have enough pyruvate, it proves that. If you lack healthy bacteria, you're not making pyruvate. Second of all, probiotic bacteria work on wonderful fibers and different foods, and allows you to create a very important acid for the brain called butyric acid. Butyric acid is important for the intestines. It heals the intestines. It gives the intestines energy. It helps you absorb minerals like calcium and iron, calcium and magnesium, etc. Most minerals are absorbed from the upper intestines and the stomach, but if they get past that, they need help with absorption, and the probiotics, when they create butyric acid, helps you absorb more of these minerals. But the butyric acid repairs the blood-brain barrier in the brain. Your brain has to be protected from toxins. You know, something that might be an irritant in your big toe, and your brain could be deadly. So your brain has this protective barrier inside the blood vessels that keeps bad things out of the brain. It's not perfect, but it works pretty darn well. It's called the blood-brain barrier, and it tends to get leaky with age. Well, there are certain things that repair the blood-brain barrier. One of them is probiotic bacteria, because they take the fiber in foods and they create butyric acid, which helps repair the brain. Secondly, alpha-lipoic acid. We'll go into that in a minute. And thirdly, resveratrol. We'll go into that one also. So probiotic bacteria do other things that are important for the brain. They create certain nutrients out of your food that are very important for brain health and your mood and your focus, etc. Resveratrol. Resveratrol is found in, we get it commercially from Japanese knotweed, which is also called Polygonum cuspidatum. That's the one used in a lot of research. And because you get high amounts from this kind of weedy thing. And resveratrol does a bundle of things in the brain. It helps repair the blood-brain barrier that keeps nasty things out of the brain, but also it's vasoactive, which means it's good for circulation. It boosts circulation. Circulation to the brain declines with age. The brain is such a high-energy organ. It needs a lot of vitamins and minerals and essential fatty acids and amino acids and all these different things to function properly. So if you have a breakdown in circulation, bad for the brain. I mean, this is proven. Resveratrol helps restore circulation to the brain. There was this study from Australia a couple of years ago where elderly women, about 100 elderly women, were given resveratrol for a couple of years, and they found that it restored circulation to their aging brain by about 17%. That's pretty. I think it was called the Washoe study. It's a long time ago I read that study. But I know my brain's still working because I remember that study. But a lot of studies show resveratrol helps restore circulation to an aging brain. Like you can see the ones from Georgetown, University down in Washington, etc. Resveratrol is very good for the brain. Well-absorbed turmeric. Turmeric has about 160 ingredients. Many of them are good for the brain, like bismuth, curcumin, and curcumin. Everybody knows curcumin. That's just one of the ingredients in turmeric. And then there's aromatic turmeric, which is a fatty acid, an essential oil, actually. And the research shows that turmeric, the whole plant, is very good for the brain. So don't just get curcumin. But when you get turmeric, it has to be a well-absorbed one. Turmeric is very poorly absorbed. And turmeric, they've shown that a well-absorbed turmeric rich in curcumin, one, it stimulates memory. It's good for memory for hours in older people, like 6 hours. Your memory functions better if you take turmeric with your breakfast. But they also found that it dependably, from about 5 human clinical trials, it dependably triggers the release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor. This is what you release when the major nerve growth factors you release when you go into deep levels of sleep at night. That helps repair the brain and helps you grow new memory cells. So a well-absorbed turmeric, not to mention that turmeric is a great anti-inflammatory in your brain. So I mentioned resveratrol, I mentioned a well-absorbed turmeric, I mentioned probiotics, and then I'm going to mention Alcar and ALA. Alcar is acetyl L-carnitine. It's important for metabolism. I mean, it works throughout the body, but it's really important in the brain. Alcar helps you create all kinds of neurotransmitters, like GABA and acetylcholine and glutamic acid for learning, and glutamate for learning, and different neurotransmitters for brain energy. But Alcar also restores metabolism in an aging brain. It allows the brain to take acetyl coenzyme A, a major source of energy throughout the body, and bring it into the brain cell and use it for energy. So Alcar, acetyl L-carnitine, is great for an aging brain. There was a very interesting study out of Arkansas where there's a center down there that does research on aging soldiers. And they went to Italy, which has the biggest brain bank in the world, and they found that older, healthy brains had higher levels of Alcar. People with subjective memory decline, where they're forgetting words or forgetting where they are in a conversation, they have a little bit less Alcar. But people who really were losing memory, like those with mild cognitive impairment and those with Alzheimer's, they were severely lacking Alcar. Alcar is good for the brain. And then there's alpha-lipoic acid. Alpha-lipoic acid is an incredible antioxidant. Many antioxidants only work one time, like vitamin E, or 2 times, like vitamin C. Alpha-lipoic acid works 4 times, so it keeps on recycling all the other antioxidants. And it's a dependable source of creating the mother of all antioxidants called glutathione. Glutathione peroxidase really helps slow the aging process. It really helps protect you from things like cigarette smoke and pollution, etc., and the consequences of viruses in the lungs, etc. But the alpha-lipoic acid also helps balance your sugar. It's very beneficial for healing the liver. It's both water-soluble and fat-soluble, so it gets all over the body and it gets into the brain. And it's very good when you take it with Alcar. There's a synergism there where they work very well together, and they really help restore brain metabolism, brain energy in aging people. So I just want to give you this further information on brain health. There are other nutrients that are showing they're good for the brain, like creatine monohydrate, Don't take that if you have reduced kidney function, because it's excreted by the kidneys. It originally came out of the bodybuilding world because it helps give you power when you exercise. And this is true. And in older people, it helps you get stronger. But it also gets into your brain. Like if you're vegan or vegetarian, it's not just good for brain energy, it's good for memory. Whereas people who are carnivores or omnivores, where they eat meat and vegetables, they eat everything, for them it's just good for brain energy. So it does help the workings of the brain. And I did mention mushrooms too. Okay, listen, we're done here. Make sure if you get a multivitamin, just to wrap this up, try to get a multivitamin with some coenzyme Q10 in it, because that's important for the metabolism in the brain. It allows you to use oxygen for energy, and it helps clean the free radicals out of your cells in your brain. It works all over the body, but it's really important for the brain. Make sure you're getting the active form of B12 called methylcobalamin. It really gets into the brain, works quite well. Get the active form of folic acid. Folic acid is synthetic. Folate is the real name. It's named after foliage because it's ubiquitous in foliage. But not everybody converts it to the active form, which is methyl tetrahydrofolate, MTHF. So make sure that you're getting that form in your multivitamin. Try to get a multivitamin with some lutein and zeaxanthin for natural sources in it. They're great for the brain. Some natural vitamin E, even some tocotrienols, which is a more advanced form of vitamin E that's super powerful in protecting your brain. All these things are important for the brain. So get a good multivitamin. That's a basic thing you could do for your brain. And it'll have some vitamin D in it as well. It'll have the B12, the folate, the B6, the B2, the B3. It'll have the B1, all these things that are necessary for the brain. And make sure you're getting fish oil somehow by either taking a fish oil capsule that's fresh, make sure it's fresh, or eating fresh fish, or take krill, which is, I eat fresh fish and I take krill. That's how I do it. Okay, for all of us at Invite Health, this is nutritional pharmacist Jerry Hickey, wishing you optimal health now and well into the future. I want to thank you for listening. You can find all of our podcasts for free wherever you listen to podcasts, or just go to invitehealth.com/podcast. And if you could subscribe and leave a review, I'm told it's very helpful. And you can also listen to Invite on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Invite Health. And I want to thank you for listening. And Jerry Hickey signing off. Have a great day.